Hey, Bobo's here, guys. Coming at you with a build demonstration. This is going to be for the Hierophant, Freezing Pulse Totem Hierophant, and just made the Ascendant one. I'll explain the differences a little bit. Like I said in the other video, the Ascendant video, so the Ascendant I feel like essentially plays smoother than this, but this definitely has more damage. And you have less totems on here, which I think partially contributes to the smoothness of the play. I feel like you have to play better on this one to get the most out of it, in the sense that if you're kind of like spammy with your totems, it hurts you way more on this, because you'll be losing, you'll like put a totem down maybe for part of a legion, and if you literally spam the other ones too fast, like before they can maybe get a shot or two off, then you might not clear that Legion pack in the front, so you have to be a bit more disciplined. I think that's like the main difference. This one definitely, I think, has higher damage potential, though. Then I'll get into why. But first of all, I'll go over the links in this. So, Freezing Pulse, Increased Critical Strikes, Controlled Destruction, Hypo, Faster Casting, and I leave multiple totems for last because typically you're going to want to use Cold Pen. I'm just not gonna like I didn't want to recall the chest just for this, but definitely use Cold Pen in place of this in this build, because you already get the Ritual of Awakening, so you don't really need to add those other two totems because you're already getting two totems at once, which is the main point of that node. I mean, you can have multiple totems if you want. It just is going to obviously lower your damage threshold and freezing threshold. So that's the links. The helm, you're doing the exact same thing. It's the same helm. You want the Fossil Crafted 9 minus cold with Resin Life. Pandemonious, obviously BIS neck, just super defensive and lots of damage. And it has Dex, which is insane. Kikazaru is obviously baseline. On this one, you can't do the Hatred Corrupt really, or I mean you can, but it's like you're probably gonna be a lot tighter on res. In this, you have to use Troll Timber Spire if you want to go the Leech version. And that's because you can't get Leech anywhere else, right? If you're not going Ascendant or Chieftain. Weapon is the same. You want flat with cast speed and some crit multi. If you can get percent of elementals add chaos, it's an insane roll, but that's the one that's like really expensive because it's useful for like a wide variety of builds. Whereas Freeze Pulse is still going to scale just really insanely off the flat added and cast speed. So it's something to keep in mind when you're looking for a budget weapon. This is like 10C. Using two-toned here because now they're not as bad because you can still get the lab enchant on them and it doesn't override the implicit there. So there, I don't have it on there at the moment, but yeah, definitely something that just makes getting your res a lot easier. Belt is Soul Tether, and then gloves we use Voidbringers. These are pretty important because when you're Hierophant, you have this wonderful Sanctuary of Thought node, which basically means that when you're at full yes, which you're probably going to be a lot, your shit doesn't actually cost any mana. I will say that given the fact that you're using Soul Tether and you can get your Arcane Surge to like an 8-9 second time, as long as your ES will degen a little bit in between packs, like you wouldn't really need to use the Voidbringers, right? But the thing is that they provide damage. They're very easy to corrupt for something good like 10% cast speed, which adds more damage. And on top of that, I would say that in really dense maps, you're actually going to have your ES up a lot of the time. So it is going to be hard to keep that 100% uptime on Arcane Surge if you're essentially waiting for the degen ES of the belt to counteract the Overleech to get you below max ES so you can use a Flame Dash to actually generate the Arcane Surge. So I think it's just easier and more fluid to take the gloves because they're actually really not terrible gloves. They give a decent amount of ES, especially if you get a high roll. The crit value is insane, and you're kind of basically pairing the crit value with whatever you get in the Corrupt, because the Corrupt is very easy to do because these are very cheap. So that's just something you should keep in mind. It also, in some cases where you're below max ES, it's going to let you get like a hell of a lot more out of your Arcane Surge if you really wanted to. You could run like 2 versions, but I think that's like super overkill. You know, like one when you're below ES, below max ES, the other when you're at max ES. I think that's kind of overkill though. So that's talking about those types of specifics. On the Hierophant, you're obviously getting Ritual of Awakening, and then the whole point of this is to stack ES, to use the Soul Tether, and in conjunction with the Glorious Vanity Jewel to give you like more ES, to give you like a nice little effective health pool there that you can leech to in combination with your life, because Soul Tether does that seamlessly. And yeah, I think that's pretty much all needs to be said about that type of stuff. Going into like the skills, this we're using Flame Dash like much more actively because we have to keep up Arcane Surge, but it's not really a big deal because it's every 8 seconds. Still using Frost Bomb, still using Projectile Weakness, both insane skills. Shield Charge is the primary movement skill. Still going to use Steel Skin, in my opinion, as the defensive skill. And you'll have probably a Lightning Golem here for your Golem of choice. One thing is, in other iterations of this build, you've run a Vol Discipline for your ES. In this version of the build, you're not going to be running that, because if you pop Vol Discipline, it literally doesn't do anything, because I think you have, you cannot recharge Energy Shield, right? So, yeah. That's how that works. Yeah, so that's that. I guess we'll get into the tree next. Oh, and just about the life. So the life is a little bit lower, but keep in mind you have Mind Over Matter to compensate, right? So you're effectively kind of at the same life total as with the other build. You just have a bit more ES. So this one's kind of actually tankier too in that way, I would say. Something to keep in mind, right? Watcher's Eye. Oh yeah, this is the Watcher's Eye you should be using on the other build as well. 15% to cold resistance while affected by hatred. Using a self-flagnation here. For some reason, I know I have a 20%. I don't know where it is. But, yeah, so self-flagnation you should have in there. Gonna have 2 First Snows, which are nice if you can get the reduced mana reserve, but it's not really super critical. Should also be running an Enlighten on the hatred in this build, which I just don't have in here right now. You get you a little bit extra mana. You know, just any little bit of effective life is going to help you, obviously. So that's the jewels. The rest of the build is pretty standard layout. Again, we're choosing to go here with the jewel, just because that's kind of like the best spot where you're not fucking things up, right? Because if you put the jewel here, where this first snow is, right? You kind of fuck yourself because you're transforming melding, and it's probably not going to be into something that's actually better than melding for this build, because melding is actually really good on this build because you're getting like the full value of your ES and your life nodes. So something to keep in mind. If you put it here, there's a lot of notables around it, and you can kind of stay away from like fucking yourself over pretty bad. One other thing, I think I just don't have the point right now, but the next point I get will be going into this, just to buff my mana pool even more. But yeah, I just don't have an extra point. Probably thinking, oh, well, why do you have a point in Firewalker? So the resists are so tight here that I actually had to put a point in there. But yeah, your mileage may vary, I guess, right? Part of the problem is that when you fossil craft your helm, you do it with the frigid fossils, which means that you're not really going to get a fire roll in your helm. And it's a bit problematic. So go into our resist. Let's see. Yeah, fire is by far the lowest one, but that's without getting the lightning walker. Keep in mind, so this is with the fire walker. Other than that, yeah, nothing super remarkable on here, I don't think. But the build does function the same way in terms of, you're just trying to build up that pool of ES, and the Soul Tether does the flawless job of like swapping between giving it to your life and your ES, and you also have that little bit of MOM barrier And you don't really yourself too quick. I mean, you kind of can, but like you're not really ever placing totems like this consistently.
My mana is spent.
Right? Like you're pretty much placing, going, placing, going, placing, going, placing, going. So your mana actually regens quite fast. So you're fine in a lot of cases. Not to mention you're not necessarily taking a lot of damage to your mana at any given time. In terms of mana regen, we have 310 per second, which is like more than fine to cover the cost of the totem, right? So something to keep in mind there. And keep in mind, once you're in a map leeching, this value is going to go down on the mana cost of the totem because you're going to be at full. Yeah, so this is one of those things where it's like you basically just want to play it a little bit slower. Like at the start of the map, don't go super crazy. I mean, you really only have to wait till your totems get a couple pulses off of you. You'll be full life, and you are full ES, and you just go for it at that point, right? And yeah, I think that's pretty much the build. Nothing else really out of the ordinary. Something I've changed from last time is I've stopped getting the frenzy charges, and that's mostly because the shields I use just don't allow for it, right? If you were to use the old shield that gives you the frenzy charges, you would take the frenzy charges, but you don't do that in any of these builds. You're focusing on the leech, so yeah. In terms of flasks, I think that's the last thing. Diamond Flask, Quicksilver Flask, Onslaught Flask, Basalt or Pen Flask, Wise Oak, and then Life Flask. And you can, like, Life Flask, I usually have Bleeding on, like a Seething or a Catalyzed. And then the other ones, you know, just get what you need, essentially. I like to have a freeze one above all, pretty much. Yep. And that's pretty much the build. So if you have, I'll point out why it does more damage, too. So obviously, first of all, you're not destroying yourself with the multiple totems gem, because if you were to actually have this in here, you'd have a cold pen in here instead. So you're gaining a damage link. You are losing 3 totems though, but you're gaining the percent more per totems, and then you're getting, this is actually kind of insane, the Pursuit of Faith, because the 6% damage actually stacks up kind of insane. Like, you can get your buff to 40 to 60 relatively easily, especially in like really dense Legion encounters and stuff like that, or in the Timeless Trials. So this actually builds up like really quick and can be sustained at like a moderately high level. Yeah, so that's pretty good, right? I mean, think about it. Like, let's say you have like 40, you go on kind of like the low end, right? And it's 6% damage per enemy killed. You have 40 stacks of that. I mean, that's 240% increased damage, which is just nutty. So, something to keep in mind there. And, yeah. So, thanks for watching. I don't think there's really anything else to explain. But, if you guys have any questions or comments or anything, feel free to leave them down below, and I'll do my best to get back to them. And we'll have gameplay footage of this stuff coming soon. Was planning on a Friday release, but might do it on a Saturday, since it's just going to be tough to get everything uploaded in time. So thanks for your patience, and got some more builds in the pipeline. Thanks for watching. Talk to you guys later.